for us, and you bring names to us, or tapes, video or audio of different people, and we are grateful for all of those. Of course, as I've said, if there's 400 people out there, there's 400 stories out there, and all of you could give a good presentation on something or other, because everybody here is a unique person, and all of you are seekers, and all of you have found a lot of things along your ways of life, and it's a great, as Bob Beck puts it, a great family. The other way we get speakers is that we attend other people's conferences from time to time to scout around for speakers, and normally we will get 2 or 3 out of every one that we attend. If we hear 15 or so speakers, we get 2 or 3 that we think would be of interest here and also are good presenters, know their subject, and are really resources, great resources of material in their areas. That's where I heard Nick Nocerino last year, and when I heard him, I knew that he was one of us. He didn't know it yet, but he does now, and you will know it after you hear him. He's got a wealth of experience. He has been singled out by I don't know whom, some of the powers above, to have some very unique experiences, and he's got tonight to tell you about them and show you some of the things. And he's going to talk on, he can talk on many subjects. He has written books, and he'll tell you about that. And I don't want to take any more time from him. So I know you're happy, I'm happy. Go ahead and welcome Nick Nocerino, please.
Thank you. Hi, can everybody hear me? Let's see, can you hear me now? Good. I only have 3 things to say about myself. 1, I teach 34 categories, 80 disciplines for 53 years. So if you have anything after the meeting you want to talk about, I'd be glad to talk to you. Any subject. And I have a rating throughout the country, so I think I can do well if you have a problem. The other thing is we do have the only meditation tape in the world on crystal skulls. We have the only book on all the skulls, for those who are interested. And on the table there, the first table in the second aisle, there is this booklet, which I believe it may be free, it may not be, I don't know. But it's on Max, the latest skull we've been working on, and the story of Max. And if the young people who are running the table are giving these out or selling them, I would, if I was you, go get them, because otherwise you have to buy a book to learn about Max, and there's quite a bit in here about Max, which is the largest skull in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. We don't know what's in Europe yet, that you can actually go and see and touch. So for those, I was just surprised to see Max looking me in the face wherever I go. We're going to talk about a lot of things, mostly at the workshop Monday. I think it's Monday afternoon, I'm not sure. We're going to talk about human skulls as well as crystal skulls. And we're going to show you comparisons between ages and what skulls show us and what the visions and holographs and all these things are. Tonight we're going to show you a few slides, which I just picked out 50 because we only have an hour, and you don't get into much in an hour. I would also like some questions, but if we don't get to the question and answer period, please be around Monday. I'll be here through Monday until Tuesday, and I leave Tuesday, and I'll be glad to answer questions. Our books and videos are on sale there. You can sign your names if you want. We will mail you information. So please just submit a list, and we'd be glad to do it. There are roughly now that we know of 16 ancient human-sized rock quartz crystal skulls. And they weigh between the weight of 9.5 pounds to 39.5 pounds. Their age category roughly is, according to the artifacts they are found with them, because we cannot measure silicon, we can't tell how old crystal is, so we go by the artifacts in the tombs that they are found in. And the artifacts in the tombs run from 3,500 years BC all the way back to a little over 5,000 years BC. Now that doesn't tell us how old the crystal is all it tells us is that, somebody might have carved this 5,000 years ago. There are many, many hypotheses about crystal skulls. And since I went public with these, and we only went public, believe it or not, in 1980, by 1982, we did an international show. After the international show, an average of 1,000 skulls a month start coming in from Brazil. And the main buyers in the world of skulls are people in the United States. Even I sell them, but we sell small ones. We do not sell antiques, artifacts, which run, by the way, the cheapest is $500,000. The most expensive is placed about $50 million. So you can put a price on any price you want. They get very expensive. Now, over the years, how many people have heard of the Mitchell-Hedges skull?
That was here about 4 years ago.
Yes, I know. It was in Denver, and last year you heard about the Texas Skull Max. How many were here last year? Good. Well, there's been a conspiracy over the years by a lot of people to convince the public that there is only one skull. Now, there are 3 books out, not counting this book, and the 3 books talk about one skull and the 2 skulls in museums. I have no idea why, because everything we do in our research project is passed on to these other people, so they are aware of all of the other skulls. As a matter of fact, this past year, for the first time, we got 2 human skulls together, ancient skulls, in the same room. And thousands of people came and saw them, but they were not able to touch the Mitchell-Hedges skull. They were only allowed to touch the Texas skull. The fact is that people came from all over the United States, as far south as Mexico and the Bahama Islands, to see these 2 skulls. What happened? We'll talk about that Monday. Because we worked for some amount of time, over 50 years, to get 2 skulls in the same room. Once before, in 1936, there were 2 skulls together. But the only people that saw this were the curators of the British Museum of Man. And if you can get a copy of the Book of Man, November 1936, you will get the report on the British skull and the Mitchell-Hedges skull. Otherwise, the book in 1973 to 75 was Richard Garvin's book, The Mitchell-Hedges Skull. Alice Galdi has a book out, The Mitchell-Hedges Skull. And they're selling all kinds of pictures that you can look at and get healed. I'm a researcher. I don't take a stand one way or the other. I will tell you exactly what is going on, where it's going on. You make your decisions. And we're not going to be able to tell you a lot in this hour, but we're going to try and give you some information. The Mitchell-Hedges skull is a little over 12 pounds. It was found in British Honduras. British Honduras today is called Belize. Belize was at one time what they called the outlaw country, pretty much, and it's only recently getting settled for tourists. Now, in 1924, in Louboutin, which is a ruins that you can go see down there, Mr. Mitchell-Hedges and his daughter found this skull called the Mitchell-Hedges skull, which is the most beautiful skull that we have seen, except for the rose quartz skull out of Guatemala. It is the most beautiful in the world. It has a movable jaw and is anatomically correct. There's a problem. The tomb it was taken out of, the artifacts date over 4,000 something years old. Now, it's impossible because everybody knows that this was a Maya tomb and they had no tools. Who carved this skull? And this question keeps coming up over and over and over again. Who carved this skull? How was it carved? So, of course, when you don't have answers to certain questions, and if you didn't dig it up yourself, stories start to happen. It came from Germany. No, it was made in Japan. No, it was made in China. It was smuggled into these tombs. Now, you imagine in 1924, you have to go through rapids, jungles, tribe, all kinds of things to get to these tombs. Then you have to take 2 years to dig them out, and here's this person smuggling this skull in, going down in the ground that it took them another 6 weeks just to lift the stones to get a hole to go in, and burying this skull in there. So Take your own facts. Whether it's true or false, I don't know. But that's what some of the curators tell you. But every one of them would like to have the skull. They tell you it doesn't exist, but they want to have it. 4 countries have laid claim to this skull that doesn't exist. Very interesting. Very interesting. People have tried to even buy it. They figured out ways that they might steal it. The skull seems to take care of itself. It's there in Canada. It's now in England, where it will probably make a home. I don't know. It's supposed to be in some sort of a private collection in England, which will be open to the public. The next skull, which has importance for you, because you can go to this skull as well as you can go to the Mitchell-Hedges skull, and it's the only 2 in the world you can go to, is the Texas skull called Max. Max is in Houston. And if you look at the inner light there, bulletin, I'm sure you get all the information you want on Max. If you don't get it, please see me later or during the weekend. I'll give you an address you can write to, and I'll be very happy to give you the phone number. You can call to make a meeting, get a meeting together to go down there. Max is 18 pounds, 2 ounces. Max is a healing skull, as all skulls are. The only reason we refer Max more or less to being a healing skull is it was in a healing temple for many years in the United States with a Tibetan monk called Nobuchen. Nobuchen, like myself, was of the Red Hat Order and studied the Bonpo. Now, why he had the skull, people say, how did he get the skull? Very simple. The skull was stolen in Sao San Agustin, as were all skulls except for the Mitchell-Hedges skull. They were stolen. And most people don't want you to know where they are or who they are, so we changed the names to protect the guilty. Nobuchen worked on mostly actors and actresses. He was always receiving patients. He worked in 3 hospitals. He's one of the few healers in the world, like Arega in Brazil. If you've seen him, or if you've been there, if you haven't there, I think there was some videos on him. And he did wonderful work. But he couldn't hold on to money. He didn't know what money was for, except to spend it, and spend it. And he got in debt. And pretty soon he could not pay his bills. Pretty soon a little guy called IRS on his back showed up. And pretty soon a few other people showed up. And pretty soon he was trying to pay his debts off, and he gave this skull to the parks in lieu of a debt between what they say, I'm not sure what it is, $25,000 or $26,000 and $30,000. He paid his debt off to them, told them to never sell it, that it was very expensive, it was a very valuable tool, to hold on to it. They said thank you. They didn't really care about the money. They weren't worried about him paying it because he had helped their daughter. They put it in a closet and forgot it. And then they saw a show one day on TV, a UFO show, and saw a skull. So they called the TV station, said, look, we have a skull. Who can we get in touch with? And of course, some people went out and finally, one arrangement or another, finally they got in touch with me. And I finally went to Texas, as I do when I hear about skulls. I go to the area and worked with the skull. I'm the only researcher who has worked with Max. I'm the only one who has a contract on Max. And our team's the only people who have records on Max, except what you read. So I would suggest you get the inner light and enjoy it. The skull already has had many offerings on prices. But what's more interesting is the skull has received many letters from people who say, I had hepatitis, or I had a lung problem, or I had this, or I had that. We do not say skulls heal. What we say is people write letters, such as the Mitchell-Hedges when we were in Canada. 2 people came in with a very serious problem. They brought also the skull to a hospital and put it on someone's chest who was supposed to die in a few days. They did not die. We do not claim anything. The people write letters and claim that the skulls heal. So when you hear about healing skulls, pictures being sold, I can't vouch for that. But for $8 or $10, you can buy a wonderful picture from Llewellyn Press, and you'll have one of the best pictures you ever saw of the Mitchell Hedges skull. I do not sell pictures of my collections or my research to anyone. I might once in a while give it away, but I don't sell it. Then we have the Maya skull. The Maya skull was taken in Sao San Agustin in 1921 to 1924. It was taken by 9 mentalists, again stolen, and the tomb is still today being looted. Just recently, I was in San Jose, California, which is the biggest black market warehouse in the United States, and the other one's in San Diego, where they bring all the merchandise in, they sell it out. And we have, to date, 6 skulls that have come out of Sao San Agustin in Guatemala. 6 so far. You know why, don't you? I want to get to the rest of them. If there are 6, I believe there are 12. And I want to get to the rest of the skulls. Because we believe that skulls come in racks of 12 and a master skull in each area. So we don't have any misunderstanding. No skull has been found anywhere in the world except in Central America. Period. Guatemala, Honduras, Belize or British Honduras, that's where all the skulls have come from. The majority, 75% of all skulls, have come from Guatemala. The British skull, they have no idea where it came from. It was taken on the Yucatan, and it's a long story about who shot who and how it got over there and finally got into a private collection. The Paris skull, slightly smaller, was perverted. What we mean by perversion is the skull was taken and then reverted into or converted into a Christian tool. They drilled a hole through the top of it and stuck a cross in it, and it was put on an altar. Of course, when the town was raided and the priest and a few other people in the town were killed, the skull was taken, and it was taken eventually by the French army and eventually found its way into France, into a private collection, and from the private collection it found itself into the Trocadero Museum by the Eiffel Tower. It is not public viewing. You will not ever see it. Why? I have no idea. In order for me to go work on the skull, I have to pay so many hundreds of dollars an hour. All research costs money. And usually it comes out of my pocket. I have no angels, and I don't have any UFOs that are dropping funds on me. So I have to locate the money. The British skull, you can see so many months out of the year, and so many months out of the year it's taken away. It's in the Museum of Man in London, and it's open to the public. If you wish to photograph it, I believe, at least last time in private, you want to photograph it, I think it was $175 for a half hour. I'm not sure. It might have gone up. Everything is inflation. It was $175 when I photographed it. So what I did was I cheated and went up and photographed it in the box that it was on display in and said, the hell with it, I'm not going to pay that kind of money. Until someone told me you can't do that. So I said, fine. I said, I haven't taken any pictures yet. I lied a little. And we never lie, right? So, okay, we lied a little. The amethyst skull that you have in San Jose, California, is also from Guatemala. It is still in San Jose. It's on a $10,000 collateral and sits in a vault there. We'll try to show you that. The amethyst skull in San Jose, Mexico, there are 6 that we know of, 4 that I worked with, and 1 that I shall be seeing pretty soon. They are all like twins. In other words, they are duplicates. They all are over 9 pounds. 1 is close to 11 pounds. And you will see them tonight, or a part of them. The rest you will see on Monday. The amethyst skull in Marin is a much smaller skull. It's the only small skull that we really know of. That's about 4 pounds. It is found, it was found in Mexico. From Mexico, it was brought up here. It was not carved in Mexico because it does not have the Mexican matrix. Actually, the matrix is Brazilian. The skull is roughly 13th, possibly late 12th century, somewhere in there. But that's also available. That's in a private collection, and I wouldn't tell you where it was anyway. The amethyst skull in Sedona. Isn't it funny we're getting into amethyst? And we haven't even got through of them. I'm not even going to tell you about a lot of them. The amethyst skull in Sedona is roughly 8.5 pounds. It is one of the most clearest and beautiful amethysts I've ever seen. It's in a private collection. I show some slides of it. That's my agreement. The rest of it, I can't tell you much about it. And it was stolen. So far, everything I'm talking about has been a stolen artifact. And we have a law, by the way. You know why people don't want you to know where? We have a law that says anything that you can't prove you had before 1969, the government takes. Yeah, they take it. They just go in your house, and they pick it up, and they take it. And the country that has, filed charges against you, or whoever it is, gets it back. It's automatic. It's an international law. Believe me, I watched a 55,000 dollar collection of little ivory carvings. That someone was mad at someone and called up them. They couldn't prove how long they had it. They took the entire collection. Entire collection. I knew they had it for years, but there was no record, there was no bill of fare, no way of proving it. And by the way, it was carved in Siberia. It was a Russian collection. Very interesting. The last few skulls that have come out were not rock crystal skull. We only have seen 16. They were either amethyst or clear quartz or frosted quartz. The last one that came out was serpentine, and it comes from Honduras. And they also found within the tomb, which they're digging now, they found a human skull, which was implanted with turquoise and seashells, which is commonly what you see in most of the world as you're traveling around. I've been in 110 countries. I've talked to a lot of juju, shaman, witch doctors, medicine women, and I'll tell you about them in a minute. And they all know about human skulls. They know very little about crystals or crystal skulls. We have the rose quartz skull, which is slightly larger than Mitchell Hedges skull, very translucent, has beautiful movable jaws, moves from Honduras through Guatemala into Lower Mexico by a secret society who still worship the skulls and who also belong to the Order of the Jaguar, which you may have heard of or not, and the Order of the Eagles. And I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. The Santa Monica skull is a clear skull. There are actually two in Santa Monica. One is only 3.5 pounds. The other one is a very large skull. Santa Monica skull supposedly comes from northern Guatemala and was recently stolen and only brought in here last year. It's a fantastic skull. I was put in a position where I took a couple of shots and then they told me to stop. So I wasn't able to get too much on that one, yet I worked with it. I have a lot of record on it. The skulls we're finding now are serpentine. Find a lot of serpentine skulls. Lots of human skulls are being dug up. And a lot of human skulls are being implanted with bones. I mean, the bones are being implanted with shells and rock. The rock that's mostly being used is serpentine, turquoise, what we think is some sort of azurite. And we don't know what the other stone is. It looks like granite, but it could be a term between granite, nephrite, and jadeite. We're not sure. The museum says it's granite. I don't believe them. Let me tell you a story. 10 years ago, when I was 21 years old, or was it longer than that? I was roughly about 8 going on 9. And we had a habit of course, we were in a depressed ghetto, and food was scarce, and we lived on about $3, $4 a week, and a lot of you remember that. I don't have to get into that. And, you know, 25 cents a day, 30 cents a day was a lot of money. I know some of you will laugh today, but it bought a lot of meat. You know, when you got pork chops at 6 cents a pound, and hamburger was like 4 cents a pound, and fryers were 2, 3 cents a pound, and fruit, they didn't sell it one at a time. You know, you got like 10 pieces of tomato for a nickel or something like that. And everything went to weight when money started coming in. We were hungry a lot. So what we did was we used to watch the obituary. And the reason we watched the obituary is because they always had a feed for the guy who died. So we used to try and cover a certain area, and we were a group of guys with torn knickers. You know, you wore knickers until you were 14, then you got long pants, and you wore shorts until you were about 10, and then you got knickers. It was very interesting. Everything was rules, 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 rules. And our rule was very simple. Find a place that's close by where someone was dead. And we would go in, and they did not have funeral parlors. They had bodies laid out in the house. Anybody remember that? Yeah, I figure a lot of you do. A lot of you look just as young as I am. The bodies were laid out in the coolest room in the house. And of course, people came and brought food and stuff, and you knelt down and you said whatever you're going to say. And of course, after you knelt down or you just bowed your head, you walked over and took a couple of sandwiches and went out. And then after the body went in the ground, everybody on the block brought food. All the kids went in. We always had, if it was 110 degrees, we had heavy jackets on, and candy and stuff went in, and we stole. We were thieves. I'm sorry. Until I went in the service, practically everything I did, I had a swipe. You want to go to movies? We swiped the nickel off the newsstand. And how I ever got in the service and how I ever got to where I am, I have the slightest idea. But anyway, I'm on my way home, and I'm eating a sandwich and thinking maybe I should have took that other sandwich. And, you know, and I go home. We lived up in this cold room tenement. Now, a cold flat is where there's no heat, no hot water, no heat. And we lived on the second floor, and I was going up. And Mom used to do sewing in the evenings. She used to sew people's clothes and other stuff she used to do during the daytime. So we walk up there, and so she had mirrors all over so people could stand there, and the women liked to stand and look at their clothes, like they do in a shop, you know, when you go in a shop. And I was walking in, and I looked down the hallway, and since I was a young child, my grandmother used to teach me how to read mirrors. And I'm a mirror reader. I have scribed mirrors since I was probably 6 or 7, I'm not sure, maybe younger. And I used to do seances. You know, I was a medium, as you call them. We used to call him a spook kid. And do all kinds of things for people, all for a nickel. If you got a quarter, you were loaded. And you always gave your mother 20 cents and kept a nickel, because she always kept the whole quarter. And I looked down there, and there was like a light in the mirror, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, maybe I've had too many sandwiches or bubble gum or something, and I'm looking to see if anybody's in the house, and the light begins to come out of the mirror, and I thought, well, what do I do? And a skull appears in the mirror. From the skull, which I have seen, if you mirror read, the first thing that happens is your body breaks down and becomes a skull, as you know, and then your past lives begin to float in. I thought that's what was happening. But this skull was different. This skull looked straight at me, and out of one eye, this bird flew, and out of the other eye, this cat. I didn't know, I thought it was a mountain lion or something. I didn't know about jaguars then. Came out of the other eye, and they went like this. In the back of the head, a reptile came out. And on each side of the head, a reptile came out. And in the front of the head, a very big reptile came out with feathers on it, and it looked straight at me. I was a little concerned, and I gently left the house. and waited till my brothers got home before I went back in the house. And I didn't dare tell anybody about it. As it was, I used to get hit in the head because I'd tell Mom, you can't do that because there's a man in there. And she'd say, what man? And couldn't see him. And she'd say, stop doing that to me, you know. And I wasn't about to tell her about this. The next few years I had dreams. And the dreams were very interesting in that I was in different periods, but mostly it seemed to me I was in some temple. Several times I was on a platform, and I had this big jade stone knife, and I was cutting someone. And I took a heart out, and I put it on the chest. And the lady with me had a crystal skull. I didn't know what a crystal skull was, but it looked like crystal. And she put it in the chest, then they took the heart away. Then there was a series of dreams whereby a baby was born, and the skull was put in, then the baby was separated. But the weirdest dream of all was they cut the stomach, and they took the baby out of the stomach. Now, I used to be there. We used to have babies in the house. I knew where babies came from. Every kid in the block knew where babies came from. I mean, you got your face slapped because you were in the way, and, you know, your mother's having a baby, your aunt's having a baby, go do this, go do that. Babies, we had midwives, you know. I never knew we had to go to a hospital and get a doctor. And I was puzzled. So I didn't dare tell my mother about it because she would consider that dirty talk and slap me. Upstairs there was this intern. So I went upstairs. His name was Dr. Frankie Pope. And I said, Doc, please don't get angry, but can a woman have a baby in her tummy? So he says, all women have babies in their tummy. And I said, well, can babies come out of the tummy? So he says, certainly. So he takes out this 8mm movie from St. John's Hospital, a training film, and he shows me how the stomach is opened and how the baby comes out. And that's my first connection with a cesarean birth. I used to call it Caesar's birth because I couldn't say cesarean. So I'd ask people, do you know about Caesar's birth? And people look at me and say, no, you know, what is that? Everything stopped. We're off the coast of Italy, and we're taking a bombardment, and it was a pretty heavy bombardment. We only got one man hit, but the British ships got hit worse than we did, and we were firing our 40 MMs at the planes and 50 cal and so forth and so on. And all of a sudden, the siren went on, and everything was over. It was pitch dark. There were 31 of us aboard ship. I was in the mine corps, and at this stage I was in a mine suite. We're after magnetic mines mostly. And we're all on deck. Most of us, it's stark new because you don't get warnings. You just fall out of the sack when there's an air raid and you hit the guns. And you're lucky the hot things don't hit you and get burn you. So we're standing there, and I looked up, and I saw this thing above us, and a lot of guys looked up. Of the 31 people looking up, 8 people looked up and saw something. 23 people did not. You figure that out. I've never had an answer to that. 23 people did not. We thought, oh my God, what the hell is that? That's as big as a city up there. The Nazis have a secret weapon. They really got us this time. I never saw anything so big. It could have took out all of Naples as far as I was concerned. And the skipper came out, and he wanted us to clean the deck, and he says, you know, go aft and do this and hit the bow. And he sees us all standing there like this, and he looks up, and he says, excuse my language, Navy talk, what the hell are you looking at? Move. And I said, we're looking at that. Now, whether he saw something or not, he says, there's nothing up there, get moving. I don't know why he did that. Well, we had to move, but we were watching. And this thing vanished. It didn't go, it just went, vanished. You know, it's here, it's not there. And I do tests all over the world on astral projection, bilocating, and everything. This thing was idiotic. So that night I had a dream, and what was the dream? Woman having babies, skulls. A few days later, we went into the coast of France, and it's a long story. We secured the place. And I had a very bad habit of having relatives everywhere I went. See, the service has a habit. If you have a relative in an area that's at war and you free it, you get a 72-hour pass to go see them because we want the good negotiations. See, so all through Italy, even in Ethiopia, I had relatives. And I told this skipper, you know, I have an aunt and uncle up at Casaconi, and which is a place I wanted to go up and look at. I wanted to see the castle up there. I'd been reading about it all my life. And he says, my God, you got more damn relatives than anybody ever met. He says, who are they this time? And I said, what's my aunt? And what I had done is I'd gone over and looked at the museum. They have a phone book on Casaconi, and I wrote down some names from the phone book, and I said, I don't know if they're still there, and I'd like to find out. And wonderful. Well, there were some guys from the French Foreign Legion, and I had made friends, and they were in Marseille, and we took off. And this will probably be the end of my personal stories. And we hitchhiked on tanks, we hopped on trucks. We were securing the place. And we went all over. We must have traveled for hours up toward the mountains from the coast. And by God, we finally get dumped somewhere because they have to go straight up and we have to go this way and that. And we're walking along the road and it's dirty, and we pass this church and this old rickety stone wall. And we look up and there's this farm. And I said, let's go up to that farm, see if we can get some water. And we only had one Frenchman who spoke English. And my French was dirty. Not from dirt, from the words. So I didn't dare want to speak. So we went up there, and the guy says, anyway, he told us to get the hell out of there. He says, you're not wanted, we have nothing for you, and they were armed. And why I say they is because there's only one man with a rifle, but you had the feeling that there were other men around that he would challenge us, because we were pretty heavily armed. And for one man to come out with a rifle, that's a foolish thing to do. So we explained to him, well, we just wanted some water and clean up. We had our own food, and we would leave some food for him. And he agreed finally to let us go. So I took my shirts off, and I lowered my pants a little, took everything out, because I want to get all the dirt off, threw water on me, took my chain off my neck, and I put it on the well. And it wasn't a chain, it was a leather. And he starts screaming. And he's pointing at me. And he's getting all excited. He's jumping all up and down the air, and that damn rifle in his hand, I was worried. What did I do, something wrong or what? So Alex went over and spoke to him. He says, what's the problem? He says, wait, you know. And he disappeared. 20 minutes later, he comes back with a big bundle, calls us into his shed there. He called it a house. And opens this thing up, and there is a crystal skull. This is my first crystal skull in my hands. And every skull I've seen since has happened this way. Except for the ones in this country where I've gone, been called to go. Every skull I've seen in another country has been by accident. A lot of stories to tell, a lot of pictures, but that's not important. I looked in the skull, a lot of things happened, made a lot of notes, a lot of records. Not at the time, because the crystal skull, the only way I can think of it was my dreams. And there were my dreams inside the skull. There was a man having his heart cut and a skull put in, a woman having a baby and a skull put in, a Caesarean birth with a skull being laid in. And I said to myself, I'm going crazy. This piece of rock is playing back my dreams. And I really didn't know what. And I felt like I was floating up here and down there. And we had a garlic and herb salad. They didn't have any fresh fruit. They had a lot of garlic. And we had some oil that was supposedly smuggled in or whatever. We had brown bread with spider webs. It tastes better that way. And that was what you got. You cut the loaf of bread, it's that big, and there's a big hole in the center. And these webs are in there. So we stayed with him a while, and we left. Now, what had happened was he got very angry with me because I would not take the skull. Number one, I saw no importance in the skull. Sorry, I didn't. I do today, and I've been back there several times. But what do I want to do with the skull? I'm trying to survive. There's a war out there. Who the hell cares about carrying a skull? What had happened was I told Alex, ask the guy why he's trying to push this thing off on me. He says, because I gave them the code word. What was the code word? 2 crystals on the well. And I'd taken the crystals out of my pocket, I'd taken the crystals off my neck, and I put them on the well. Therefore, I was the courier, and I got to take the skull because the Nazis were infiltrating, the communists were coming down, taking the villages, and the Free French had not got in and secured the towns yet. I had to take the skulls to the vault. What vault? I haven't the slightest idea. Then, I know a lot about it since. It took me a long time to find out I was in the Knights Templar country, where you were very cautious what you did and didn't do, believe me. Some of my friends went. I have never seen them again. But that's neither here nor there. That's Monday. And I said, we can't do it. You know, we finally convinced him we couldn't do it. He disappeared, ordered us out. If we weren't who we said we were, we left. Went back on the road, went up to Casaconi, came back, made arrangements, so forth and so on. 3 weeks later, I told him my uncle had been sick and I should go again. I told him I'd be back as soon as I can get back, and I got another 72-hour pass, which is pretty good because right after that, when I got back to the ship, thank God I didn't have the skull because our ship was sunk, and everything I had, including my crystals, everything, my belongings, was sunk with it. My rebreather wasn't. I was out in the water at the time, so we would have lost the skull. But maybe I would have known where it is, so I can go get it. But that's my first contact with skulls. That is the first time I held a skull in my hand. I saw the British skull. I saw the skull in Paris. And by the way, there will be another skull showing up in Paris within the next 10 days. And if everything is correct, and if the couriers are correct, there will be a skull in Paris within 10 days. And the Paris government will probably not want you to see it or tell you about it. They hide everything. I have no idea why. Well, how's my time?
33.
Huh?
33.
Oh, well, let's look at some slides. There's a lot to tell you, and I want you to see some slides. These are just simple slides, and I think you'll enjoy them. Wait a minute, let me find the...
Hanging down. Hanging down on the podium.
Okay. Now that's forward and that's reverse. Okay, let's try it. Now, this is the Mitchell Hedges skull, and can we get the lights out? This is the Mitchell Hedges skull, and we're running color test on it. The action in the skull, when we say action, it's where we photograph images, is here. You may or may not see something. In the videos, you'll see it a lot clearer. And here. Then the action moves across here and comes out here. The last place you see anything is you'll see faces will come through here, this area, right across there, and moves this way, and the action stops here. This was in 1985. We spent 21 days doing color tests. In these particular shots, we try to narrow our photos down to just photograph this, for instance. We shoot all photos 7 times. Even after we take them, we reshoot them 7 times. Again, we have action here. This is a black box, by the way, if you want to know what it is. You do that so you won't have reflections. We take it with normal light, and we put them in black boxes, and we take them with no light at all, so you get an idea where we're going. The action here, for some reason or other, starts in here. It takes a few moments for your eyes to adjust. Then please look in here, and you'll see people coming through what may be a cave. If you see it, fine. If you don't, that's fine. And then there's some action here. The rest of the action moves, for some reason, through here and ends up here where each tooth begins to become a woman or a man. I don't know if you can see it. I'm on a side, so it's very hard for me. The last place that anything happens in this shot is here. We don't know why color does this, but certain colors cause certain things to happen. This is a clear glass skull, the Mitchell Hedges skull, for those who have seen it. This is touching the skull, and look at what happens to it. This is simple human touch. You see the whole brain structure taking place? There's where the pictures will come out, but we're more interested in this. There's where this will eventually become ladies, and in here. I don't know if you can see them. If you see them, fine. You know, I'm not trying to tell you to look here or there. I'm just trying to tell you where we look. And then we photograph this, then we photograph that, then we photograph this area. And we have those in separate runs. These are some of the stones we use to test the skull. We used every stone, over 300 of them, that was known at that period, roughly 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. They weren't all the stones known as there are today. We used all the stones used on the high priest buckles, belts and apron, not only for the Hebrews, but for the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and for the high priests of Peru, Aztecs. We had no idea what the Mayas used. These are water stones, and these were the ones that activated the skulls the most. These are rings that were taken from tombs, and some of these rocks and stuff were taken from tombs. And we're trying to give you an idea of some of the stuff we do. I'm trying to go fast. This is the Maya skull. The action will start here, and eventually it goes to the sides, up through the nose and down through the sides. You'll see here is where the action starts. You'll start seeing people in here. Then larger people will come in here in these areas. And it takes a few moments for your eyes to adjust, but you'll see people kneeling and standing all through this area. You see something, fine. If you don't, that's fine. You'll have more time if you're there Monday. This is Peruvian whistle, Dr. Steve Halpin, who has been up on the stage here. Do you remember whoever, you were here when he was here, wasn't he? Yes. Yeah. He is doing some sound tests. These are the ancient Peruvian whistles, and we're doing some runs with them. And they do several things. For instance, they create another skull in here, which is a completely different thing, and the skull begins to open up and become people, and then we get people all through this area. And certain sounds on his whistles made certain things happen. This is the first time we had a report of someone getting hurt from a skull. We had a lady who had a certain part of her body got burned during these tests, and I believe Dr. Halpern, his arm or leg, what was it, arm or leg, Steve? Leg got burned. That's Dr. Halpin when he was in a normal state. You see, this is the area that's the sound opens up first, mostly. These are the images. I don't know how old these are or how new they are. The ones I have at home are very ancient, very ancient. I dug them out myself. There's where you want to look. You want to look here, then you want to look up here. We ran these through every test conceivable. Even in clot tests, we ran like all blue shots from blue shots, and all red shots, all green, all brown, all yellow, all black, all white. We put them in moon shots. You should see something in here. If you don't, I'm sorry. In our surveys, which are over 25,000 of them, which have been returned, everyone reports this area is very alive to them. So either you do or you don't. That's entirely up to you. You want me to leave it a moment so you can adjust? Do we have time?
Yeah.
We don't know what these are. Things come and go in skulls. We have no idea what they are. Can you see here? And then the action goes across here. Last but not least, we have things that fly through here. And it's very hard to photograph what the video sees, because if you don't pinpoint it, you don't get anything. Here, here, and down in here. Then the people coming out through the wall. What we have learned is that these things are like memory banks. They seem to record. This is the amethyst skull now in San Jose. This is a Mexican matrix, probably from the San Felipe mines off of the San Felipe fault. This is roughly dated in the pickings about 4,500 years BC. It's carved against the axis, as are all skulls, so there was no way that it should have been done, as most museums, curators say they shouldn't exist, but they do. Your action will be here and in here. These will take a little longer to see action. You see it through here? That's where the action, it comes off of the white matrix. And pretty soon we have battles going on all through this area. And then through here. We've had some good offers on that skull, but it's gone in hiding. And they won't tell us where it is. This is how we determine how old a skull is. These artifacts, they got $55,000 for this artifact. This one sold for about $70,000. Do you think looting a tomb is a good, profitable business? Yeah, you darn right it is. And this is another skull, which is not important right now. But these are the way we do it. We get the artifacts. It's from the artifacts we make the carbon tests, and which are either within, depending on how old it is, within 100 to 500 years. Now, that is not Aztec. That is Maya. Definitely Maya. It comes from the Maya highlands, and this tomb has 3 definite skulls that we know that were taken out of there, and 3 others in the area. We believe that there are several others that we want. We know where one is, and we are tracking him. And he'll get a message soon to do something about it. This is a similar skull. This is roughly, it's amethyst, by the way, it's clear amethyst, and the action is all here, and it's mostly spaceships, or what people call spaceships. I don't know anything about spaceships. I can tell you all kinds of stories about them, but I don't take a position. But somebody's either a liar or there's a hell of a lot of action going on out there. But you'll see the action will move in here, and we'll see in this, which is now, we're going into late 12th century, early 13th century. That's what the artifacts show, and this may be older or not. You're seeing what we call UFO battles. Unfortunately, it's hard to show it when we shoot off and try and get slides made. This is where your action is. By the way, for the benefit of those who don't know, this is in Sedona. I can't tell you any more than that. This is the next place we get action. Starts here. Then this opens up. And you can see right through it, by the way. That's kind of scary, just looking at the face. He would never smile, I don't know why. The other skulls seem to smile. See? This is some sort of a ceremony that goes on down here. This is where we get all the action in battles that look like extraterrestrials or ETs or whatever you want to call them. This is another skull. We'll just say that this is the Marin skull. Very, very old. We're doing all our tests. We test with, first we start out, these are old skulls. This one is about 5,000 years old. Some of them down there are a little older. The one I wear is close to 5,000. And we take every known precious stone and we test them on the skulls, and then we go through every rock conceivable during the time periods that these things would have been made in. That's the best way of describing it, and the things that happen are very interesting. There's where the action goes. This is in a secret group, and plus some other skulls, and I'm not allowed to divulge where or what. The action, by the way, is here. I don't know if you can see anything, but that's where the action is. And later on, it will come here through a cave. This will open up wider, and you'll see people walking through. And the people we see do seem to be of the period of the 12th and 13th century. The armament, because we go into the various books on the subject. We have a tremendous library. My library alone is over 5,000 books. and most of them are reference books. Here we start getting white all through the skull. This is a solid purple skull, amethyst skull, but it just shows you that by concentration, this is all done by concentration in a stone in each eye, we begin to change. And here we get something that people claim are like Egyptian something or other, or whatever it is. I don't claim they are anything. Here we're testing one of the skulls. The skull is put in this particular solution, and a laser is shot through the skull to tell if it's one piece or not, if the carving is one piece. This is Hewlett Packard, and the skull disappears. If it's natural quartz crystal, it virtually disappears in a solution. The reason that the light is shined through it is to look for any breaks. And all we know is it's carved the wrong way. Some idiot carved this wonderful thing and didn't know what he was doing. And like one guy says here, he should have been punished. But this thing has outlasted him in a few other worlds. This is called a transformation. This, all the balls and all the material we had, all the crystals around the skulls, start picking up the pictures of the skulls. I don't know if you can see it, but everything we saw in the skulls began to appear in everything. And for months, the people who have these keep seeing things in them. So the crystal balls that have been found with the skulls, which we were testing, and the crystals we were using, are, believe it or not, showing pictures today. Why? Please don't ask me on the slides, I dear. This is Frank Dorland, who has never copied a skull in an affidavit we have, and never sold a copy of any, or never sold pictures of any. Make your own decision. He's a very nice man, but he, like me, sometimes lies. This is a Mitchell Hedges skull. This is a blue, we have the blue laser on this. I don't know where that's coming from, but colors appear. Sometimes it pushes one color out and it makes another color come in. What happens to the skulls after a period of time under color? They virtually disappear and become dots, which you'll see, and we have calculated that as a mathematical formula, and we have several people trying to figure the formula out. These, for instance, like these people who would be there, just become dots, or this group here become dots. And we have skulls that just disappear or duplicate. You'll have double skulls, and they're all dots. They either multiply or they disappear. Brain. Red keeps appearing, we don't know what. Here's where the action is. Starts here, these things come in and land here, and they come out of here, and they move that way. There's some sort of a building here, we think it's a pyramid, we don't know. And it goes on and on from there. But all of the slides begin to change. You get an idea, and you can make up your own mind from here if you see anything or not. These are not out of focus, I'm sorry to tell you. We use 4 cameras, plus 1 camera underneath and 1 on top. 4 sides. We have a video camera photographing everything everybody is doing, and very little we know is sometimes what's coming out on the film. Here we switch to green. Where the rest is coming from, we have no idea. The black box is being flooded with green. The action, by the way, is here and moves this way. The teat will just expand and the bottom will disappear. Last place you want to look is here, here, and here. This is where we usually see the ETs, and down through here in this area. I call them ETs. I didn't know what they were when I first saw them. We just name them that. Here we see them again when they come in and they move across and they go down this way. These, for some reason or other, just go up. I've never figured out what. And we have this break of some sort of temple at the top of the skull. This is a face that appears 1,000 times. We've got over 10,000 photos in nearly every skull. Can you see that? Right there, the eyes, nose, head. We don't know what it is, but it's certainly not anything of our time. This is where the skull begins to push everything away and virtually gets to where it's going to disappear. We are flooding it with color. You'll never believe it, but it is pushing it all out. And it's going into a different shape. Actions in there, and around there. I got to go fast because I'm running out of time. Your action starts here. You have some what we call UFOs today that will come in this way and go down through here. And there'll be a battle up here somewhere. There's I think there's 2 look with green and red lights and 2 with blue lights, blue and white lights that fight each other all the time. These are runways. Anyway, that's where some kind of craft moves. For lack of a better word, I call it UFO. And I'll tell you why it's a UFO, and you decide in a few minutes whether it is or isn't. This is where the orange is being shot up from the floor up through the glass box. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, but now here we're shooting up. I'm laying on the floor, 2 dogs are licking my face, my tripod's aiming up, and I'm trying to get what I'm seeing. These are teat, by the way, and we get action through here, and we get all kinds of moving craft, and we're trying to pin it down, but the video does better than this stuff. Wait a minute. What that is, I'll leave it up to you to decide. From this, which we were shooting, we ended up with something like 11 pictures in different color, everything from blue, green, yellow, with this and another station. You ever see these space station we shot up? Well, there's one right in the bottom of this skull. And you can put the light on so we can get back to wherever we were. I'm sorry, what happened? Oh, yeah, I usually tell people to shut their eyes. I apologize. I did want to answer a question or two. We're over, aren't we?
No. How many skulls did you find altogether?
I found 16.
How many have been found total?
I can't hear you.
How many have been found total in all?
I worked on 16 in all. There's nobody in the world that's worked on more than 2.
16 skulls have been found?
That's right. And we've worked on 400 other skulls, but they're not all rock quartz crystal. Yes.
The question that came up around here, there might be some confusion as to whether the human skulls crystallized. So maybe you could just explain a little more that these are actually...
Well, I was going to do that Monday, but
Well,
okay.
these are-
Okay, one of the theories is that human beings have been high priests or priests have gone through a old ancient Assyrian process where the skull of a human is converted into a polarized and into a crystal. Okay, that's one theory. The other theory is they come from Atlantis, which all of this we're going to get into Monday. Other theories is that they come from the Pleiades and were put here long before men got excited and they were lost and refound. The other theory is, my theory, and a few other, the archaeologists and anthropologists I work with, is that the world has been changed so many times. We know of at least over 300 times that the world has changed, that all civilization has changed, all buildings have been lost, everything else. And we will probably have it happen again. Mother Nature is our worst enemy, not the atom bomb. Mother Nature will take care of everything, and she'll clean house. And she's done it so many times that there was a society before that did this. Yes?
If we wanted to, do we have the technology to carve that sort of thing?
Yeah, anybody can carve a skull, but you can't carve these. These are carved, number one, against the axis. You know what that means? You ever carve a diamond against the axis? They shatter. This is 7 hard, and it should be easy to do, you think. Every crystal we've had them carve against them, and it's cost me a lot of money. Crystal's very expensive when you buy big chunks. Very expensive. And we'll even talk about the new skulls being carved. We have pictures and photos of everything that's been carved so far and delivered in the United States. But carving a skull is no problem. Okay?
What about against the axis?
No, we have not. Hewlett Packard could not duplicate it. They mentioned that it would take over a year, 24 hours a day with their latest equipment. They were not sure they could even duplicate it, and the cost would be $500,000 in advance, and the balance as we went. And when you're making $699 on Social Security, you don't get excited. Yes.
With that guy that carved it wrong, what did he do wrong again?
Well, he wasn't the only one that carved it. Many carvers carved them wrong. They've all been carved wrong.
Oh, okay.
And how could they have carved them? They had no tools. Everybody knows that the dumb natives had no tools. Yet, you ought to hear some of these archaeologists. People are too stupid. That had to be done in Germany. Why? Why?
Because Carl Zeiss wanted river quartz.
Yeah.
Bought everything they could get.
Yes.
And if you want to buy
Yes.
it, and if you want to buy it, you get a pentagram and you make a couple of crystal skulls, you get all your brass for free.
We buy a lot of crystal Guadaway skulls out of Germany. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, but I mean, at that time.
I know. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, it had. You say no, not Germany, Japan. I'm in Japan. They say, why would we carve a skull out of a stone we consider holy? Now you put that on iodine bottles. You don't carve skulls out of it. Crystals are very holy to the Japanese. Where are the skulls coming from now? They're coming from Indonesia. They're coming from Brazil by the thousands. Everybody in America who's an entrepreneur and wants to make a fortune thinks they're going to go down and buy all the skulls and haul them up here and sell them. They're being carved in Germany. The best and most anatomically correct are German. And we bought quite a few. We just bought a batch out of Brazil. The average skull, which is about maybe that big, sells between $80 and $125. These skulls sell for maybe this size, not this one, but this size sells for about $30. They used to sell for $2. I could go into any country in the South and for $5 come back with any size skull I wanted. Not since our great entrepreneurs go south. All crystal in the world, we absorb 85% of the crystal sold. All since 1984. And one guy told me he should shoot me for ever coming out publicly with skulls. Because he's had to load up on them ever since, because his competitors are loading up on him. And I'll talk about that on Monday. Yes. Who had their hand up? Any other questions? Oh, you gave me 10 minutes. Oh. Yes.
I watched the documentary where a diver found a skull with a triangle.
The man who found the skull was not a skull. It was a crystal ball. You mean Dr. Reverend Brown?
I don't know, it is a skull.
It is not a skull. I happen to be familiar with the documentary. It's Reverend Brown, and no skull was ever found anywhere in the Bermuda Triangle. But they did claim, and I have to tell you the story exactly as I know it, as we researched it. He went diving. He had a great ship, and he had all this stuff out there. He went diving. He was diving in, and he found this lost city underneath the Bermuda Triangle. He swam in there, and there was this lady with this crystal ball. Gigantic statue. And all of a sudden, the earth began to shake. And it was an earthquake, and everything was going to get knocked over. He swam in, grabbed the crystal ball, swam out, and the city was destroyed. Except for one thing. As a researcher, I couldn't find the ship. I could find no logs of it. I could not find any sonar records, radar records. I couldn't find anyone who ever knew about it. And we asked to see some records. As a researcher, don't take people's words from them. And please, don't believe what I tell you. Believe what's in your heart and what's in your mind. That's where real truth is. I've been teaching for 50-something years. And the one thing when people start telling me, please help me do that, no. You take the truth. Everything we tell you, part of it's truth for you, not all of it. The rest goes into the computer. And when it's needed, all of a sudden it pops up and you wonder where the hell it came from. Well, it's been there for a long time. And there's only one person you have to believe in. And that's the person you look at in the mirror when you get up in the morning. Love that person, and your life's going to be a lot easier in this world. Whether you like crystal skulls, whether you like crystals, whether you have generators. Today we have male crystals, we have female crystals, left-handed crystals, right-handed crystals. We have recording crystals, we have memory crystals, we have computer. Hey, a crystal is a crystal. But the biggest crystal of all is sitting in those chairs. Believe me, questions? Yes? What is he saying? I can't. Can you come up or
I was wondering what the symbology of the skull.
Oh, well, that. You got to get into human skulls for that. Excuse me, sir. You got to get into human skulls for that. And what you need to do is the symbology is knowledge.
He didn't finish his question.
Oh, I didn't like.
He's asking something different.
Okay, have him come up and ask the question. I can't hear him. Or do we have a mic for him? It's hard to hear you, so I apologize. I want to repeat the question so everybody hears it.
I was wondering what the symbology of the, if you've had the skull and bones around for a long time, and I just wondered what the symbology of the crystal skull is from another point of view.
Well, skull and bones, if you've studied skull and bones, happens to mean death and destruction. It was used as a warning mostly during times of illnesses and sicknesses, not by pirates. It came to pirates later. It was used and put on townships, villages and stuff where you were not to enter. And nobody was allowed to leave because of the plague or because of some epidemic. It could be cholera, anything you wanted. The crystal skulls are differently in that they are conservators of knowledge. They belong maybe to the Balaka or the Iban or the Adama or the Patsma or the Kasva, different tribes who collect skulls and use them to gain the knowledge of the skull. They're a symbol of the person's knowledge that the skull is taken off of. That's different completely. You're talking about something that started with cholera, with plague, and death was what the skull represented it, because there were no place to bury these people. There were just skulls all over the place. And that's where the skull and bones came from villages that had the plague or epidemics. And they had to have it on the village sign. Otherwise, the king's troops came and destroyed the entire place. They just burned it down, or the baron, or whoever it was. I can only give you that right now without getting too far into it. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about skulls arriving. You talked about skulls showing up that are inlaid with things.
Oh, yeah. We just looked at 4 of them.
I mean, are these authentic, or why are they just showing up?
Well, they're priests or noble people, a king or someone who's a noble woman or noble man, and they want the skull there. There are tribes who, number one, believe that they have to have the skull of anyone who died. And there are tribes that believe they can decorate the skulls, and they do an honor to the person, and the person therefore hangs around longer and helps the village or helps the temple or whatever it happens to be. And basically they use what are called holy colors. Turquoise was the most holy color of all. The most psychic color of all was, as you probably already know, was lapis lazuli and malachite. And those are the most secret colors that we know of in religion. Those were the records that were first taken or destroyed. And I grew up with what we call a malachite eye and a lapis eye, which you wore all the time. And that's in the Red Hat or the Bon Po. You always had your malachite eye, and you never used your own eyes. It's another story. And if you don't join it, because you got to spend 9 weeks to 9 months in a hole in the ground, and you won't like it because they give you not much to eat. Any other question? We're going to call it quits for now. You have a question. You keep talking among yourselves. You want to ask it? Yes.
body was always laid like this, and this was the original, older notion of the skull and crossbones before it was used for poison or for death.
Yeah, well, that's true, except for one thing. Most of the people had their arms. What he said was in Egypt, they always laid the arms like this. So therefore, it could also be why the skull and bones that the fellow in the back was asking about, why the skull appears with the bones, crossbones. You know, you're looking at esophagus and you see a body, or for that matter in Peru or any place in Mexico or Guatemala or Colombia, it's the same thing, I'm sorry, you know. And what they did do is they had a shod for the rich people. They would put a shod in the eye, and they would put a shod in the mouth of a holy stone. And they would cross it with the idea, so that the light from the shod, from the polished stone or whatever it was, would call out to the soul to come back to the body. And they had a light there, and the cross basically was for them to focus down into the light. At least that's what I was told about the Temple of Ra, and I may be wrong. I probably am wrong. That's the end of it. I love you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Don't forget the video and the book.
All right, refreshments are available out in the atrium, so you can now socialize, fraternize, and